Good morning, everybody. We need to get started. I know you guys are really going to hate this, but we'll have to kind of rush through our meeting because we're getting started a bit late. So I know everybody will shed a tear for it. So Kim's going to go ahead and do our invocation. Do you want to use the mic?
Good morning, Rotarians, both on the screen and here in person. We're really blessed to be here today. Nice to see all of you. Isn't it great? Let's just give a round of applause for being out. Okay, let's bow our heads. Let us think spring thoughts. Let us think about our president-elect preparing to take the reins of our club. Let us think about our club's goals and the roles each of us plays to make the world a better place through our involvement in Rotary. Think about opportunities to serve in new ways. Let us offer thanks for our food and blessings for one another. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. Let us be grateful for our opportunity to serve Rotary. Amen. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we'll do our four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And while I'm up here today, you can be seated. Thank you. I'll just tell you how many, we have 21 Rotary members here today. We have 3 Sunset Rotarians here today, and I'm going to introduce them so that you know who they are. We have Kim Statham. Stand, Kim, so you can say hi to everybody. We have Charlotte Davis, the president of the Sunset Club. And we have Taylor Cobble. Also, Chris Jackson has a guest with him today. And Chris, would you like to introduce your guest? Sorry, I caught you with a mouthful.
Yep, this is Connor Meadows. He's in the corporate cleaning group, and he was interested in Rotary and told him that long.
All right, well, welcome. We're glad you're here today. We hope to see you again soon. And then we have all our wonderful Rotarians on the screen. Let's give them a wave. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to take this off. I've been vaccinated too, by the way. Somebody's work. So first, I want to acknowledge Lisa. Lisa worked really hard to get this set up. We do have some kinks to work out. We had some problems with email. Unfortunately, DACDB has a listed problem with the mail serve, so we didn't have a good sign up, so we didn't know the proper number. But we'll have it worked out for next week. So thank y'all for coming and being patient with us. Next, we'll do. Is Rick here? Yeah, that's all right. You want to do our birthdays and anniversaries?
Good morning, Gate City.
Good morning,
Great
Rick.
to be back, isn't it? And happy birthday to everybody. We've got a couple of club anniversaries, and I'm not sure, I don't think Blake here. Blake has 23 years with the club. Chris Neal does. That's Chris is here. Maybe online. Chris, 6 years with the club, and be sure to congratulate him. And well, we have nobody here on this today. Holland having a wedding anniversary. Not here. Is Christy home here today?
She's online.
Is she there? All right, Christy, we got you for a heads up for next week for the wedding anniversary. So don't forget Don on that. And let's see. Wow, that is it. What we have there, Mr. President. So everybody else, I guess, is at home today.
Thank you, Rick. Remember, we're doing speed meetings. So We're gonna keep it quick. We do, I just wanted to make a quick announcement about our bylaws. The board will be meeting next Tuesday and we're gonna vote on our final revision. Once it's voted on by the board, we'll send it out to the club. If anybody sees anything that's, if the judge rules it's unfit, then we will review it again and get it to where it works for everybody. So that's coming up. We are planning to have a district conference. I don't see Gigi. I do know by show of hands, how many people have registered for it so far? So I'm pretty sure Mike Conrad has as well. I don't think they can have it without Mike. So I know we have at least 4 members. I'm pretty sure Gigi's going. So 5 members with significant others. I think we should get close to 10 people at the conference, which is excellent. Tom Richardson, you want to make an announcement about our fundraiser?
Well, we'll have some sort of fundraiser. We're still working out the details. I talked to Star about it yesterday, and they have a lot of restrictions still in place. I've gotten a lot of suggestions from people, but we're finalizing things. Later next week, we'll make a decision on what we're gonna do.
Thank you, Tom. They said they can host 100 people there, right, at their current capacity. So if the capacity keeps going up, we should be able to do something, right? This is not the kind of year where we do long-term planning. So just stay tuned for further details. We do have a very special announcement from our youth services chair. Judy, you want to come up, use mic? Judy's quiet, so the mic will help.
Thank you. Yeah, we have some really exciting news this morning. Number one, Sarah Dewey represented us at the 4-way test this past year. And with that, she came in 4th place and won $100. So we're real proud of Sarah. She's a sophomore at Page High School, and she's a true leader. So her sister Marion was going to be our foreign exchange student. So Sarah wants to be involved in Interact for next year at Page High School. So we're real excited that we already have a big leader that wants to get involved. So that's going to be really good for everybody for next year. Also, we have Monday night is going to be our 5 finalists for the $40,000 scholarship. This is big, y'all. This is really good. Your club has worked so hard for this for so many years, and starting in the fall will be the first year that we can start to give away some monies. The 4 finalists are Lillian Hicks from Grimsley, Michaela Coley from Dudley, Courtney Jones from Page, Stephanie Dilbert from Smith, and Trinity Smith from Page High School. So we'll be able to announce a winner hopefully Monday night, and we will let y'all know as soon as we pull it.
Thank you. So it was a good bit of work. We had 19 applicants, and all of these applicants were really good. So Judy's worked really hard on it. Thank you, Judy, for helping us get those people in. And we're going to have a very well qualified finalist here. That person will get to meet the whole club. So we're going to plan some event, maybe have them come to our changing of the guard or something along those lines. All right. We do have another service project coming up soon. Y'all have to excuse my amp. This is about a $20 amp I bought for my son to learn to play the guitar. So
Is it a little bitty guitar?
it's a cheap one.
It makes the right amount of sound.
Out of the garden service projects coming up March 20th, Peter sent out an email to everybody. Steve, how do you pronounce Peter's last name?
Don't
It's
try.
like the cracker. Ritsage.
Okay, Peter sent out an email. And I did reply to him. I think he's trying to organize it. So if you want to go and you plan on bringing guests, I think they have lots of capacity. So send the email to Peter. It should be a large group. I think Charlotte has said that they've filled most of the slots already, and they will expand it to allow more capacity, which is great. And we know there's some food insecurity, so it's a big deal to get out there and help. Bobby, you want to do our happy dollars? That's all the announcements I have.
Happy dollars. Buster, can you hear?
What did you say?
All right,
You hear me?
person, Gail.
I haven't done a Rose of Victoria in a while, right? So here's $20.
Boy, this is.
This Rosenheim, I tried to give her this $20 and she said, no, thank you.
Wow.
So I put a better place for it. I could not believe that. She said, you gave me some money yesterday, Mom. So take that back. I could not believe it. Anyway, she's doing really well in the state. She is delegate for her sorority house. She is sitting on the board there. She's got a part-time job. She got promoted in this magazine that she's working for. She had a 2-page article published. I think now she's like editor-in-chief of that. So she's really arriving. So I'm really thrilled, and she's been really enjoying living in Raleigh and in the sorority home. So that's really great. And Victoria is playing lacrosse, which she's never done before. And she had she was goalie and decided she planned the field this year and actually had an assist. Since we're in a hurry, I'll say the rest for another time. Anyway.
$20. Well, now I gotta shut you.
Good morning, everybody. 2 weeks ago, I wanted to share this last weekend, but wanted to wait for this. 2 weeks ago, a guy had to remove one of Charlotte's teeth. And in the past, I've set her up to say clever things to her, but this time I did not. Charlotte's getting ready to have the tooth extracted. She stops, pulls the mask off. Real serious, looks at the guy, goes, "Guy, don't you mess up my pretty face." It was funny.
It was a baby too.
It's been a while. This is for, I got two stories. First of all, since we last met, I became a grandfather last July. And our daughter Kristen had a little girl. And last night we found out our youngest, who was married and also was another daughter. But he and his wife were expecting a child. They got married last May in September this year. So wow.
Happy,
Dr. Guy.
This 10, so I have two. One is to thank Lisa and Steve and David and all of the board members who worked to get this place lined up. I mean, it was really fast. And there's a lot of planning that goes into this. So these guys put in a ton of time. I did very little. That's why I'm thanking you. So really appreciate you guys' hard work. The other one is a scholarship group. I mean, it's the same thing, lots and lots of work. I've participated in it. I'll probably get a lot of credit for it, but really Judy, Chris Justice did most of the work at screening all these people. We got all kinds of stuff. We got applicants who were from different schools. We've gotten like beg letters from people that didn't even qualify. So just screening all that stuff and getting through it was really effective, and they did a great job. So.
I sort of gathering my thoughts as I was driving here this morning, and back in 1942, Churchill, paraphrase here, spoke that it's not the, oh God, I'll get it wrong. It's not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning. And I think we are. I think we all know that we're getting there. And just to be with you guys, this club means so much to me for the three basic reasons that we all cite. It is the camaraderie. I love you guys. I seem to be, every year I seem to have more interactions with more of you, and I really have my heart goes. It means a lot. The networking has been wonderful. I've said all along, if my butt was ever in a sling, I know the people to contact. I mean, I truly feel that. Thank goodness I haven't been in that position. And networking for business, I've been very fortunate to get some real estate business from y'all, and for that I'm exceptionally grateful. And I know many of you have gotten business out of this and all the others. So I urge those of you who are on screen right now, zooming in, it's great, and, but this is where we belong. Anyway, thank you very much.
After you've been in a little while, you'll understand Rotary just a pyramid scheme. We all sell stuff to each other to get rich. Robert.
All right, got a 20 because I don't do Venmo, but I've done a few happy dollars in the last 9 months, so that should cover things. But I got a couple this morning. First of all, I would echo what Dr. Romano said about the folks who got this group together and made this happen today. This year, as of May, Rotary will be celebrating here at Gate City our 30th anniversary. And over the years, we've been in a number of places. We started out near the Ramada Inn at Greensboro College and went there. Then for a number of years after a brief stint at the Realtors Building, we were at Starmount, and then we have been at Theo Henry ever since. This is our first time here, but I believe that Crescent for many years met here at the Elks Club. And we just sort of hop around, and this last year has been an example of that. And I'm also reminded that in 2 weeks, we will celebrate the 240th anniversary of the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, which was a monumental Revolutionary War event. But the leader of that event for the colonists, General Nathaniel Greene, had a saying to describe George Washington's strategy as commander-in-chief, where you didn't have a lot of victories over the British soldiers who were the best army in the world, but you kept getting knocked down and you kept regrouping to have a new day to recover and put new troops in the field. And he said, you know, we get knocked down, but we rise and fight again. So I feel like as a country, as a club, and as a community, we're rising and fighting again. And we've got hope ahead of us with spring and some good things happening on the scene with our public health and economy and other things. We just need to fight together instead of fighting each other. And that's sort of the spirit of Rotary, and that's what we're going to do. And I'm glad.
Well put.
Been there, done that.
Well, Grandpappy Christensen's kind of an old, stodgy old conservative, and he was really upset the other day. He said, man, this Mr. Potato Head thing has just really got me. He said, you know, there's no more Mr. Potato Head, no more Mr. Potato Head. How in the world are we going to have tater tots?
Right here.
Judy, you want to introduce our speaker? Thank you, Bobby. Great job.
You can go up the flag.
Our two speakers this morning are from Page High School and High Point Andrews. And when I was working on the scholarship committee, I had gone and talked to Eric. And in the conversation with Eric Nagley from Page High School, he mentioned that he and his buddy here, Marcus, love to do a presentation. And so we finally got him here. I'm going to give you a really quick bio. Eric Nagley is a native of Gainesville, Florida. He came to the area to attend school at Greensboro College and has called Guilford County home ever since. He began his education career in educator in Greensboro County schools. While there, he pursued his master's in school administration. Upon graduation, he began his career at central office, serving as both the title specialist and then became the Title I director after 2 years. He served in this role for an additional 2 years and then felt the call to get back to the school setting. He served as the principal at Pierce High School, Northwest Middle, and Page High School, where he's been for his 3rd year. He is the current Guilford County Schools and Piedmont Triad Principal of the Year, while being one of the 8 finalists in the State Principal of the Year Award that'll be announced in May. Mr. Nagley is also currently a doctoral candidate at Walden University. On a personal level, he has 4 children, 3 of which in the Guilford County Schools, with the 4th in daycare, and that's Hudson over there. While his wife Devin serves as an exceptional children's teacher in Guilford County Schools. Thank you. Goss is a native of Supply, North Carolina.
The big city, you've never heard of?
No, never have. He's a lateral entry educator who started his career in the production and manufacturing field. It afforded him to work in the aerospace industry, Pratt & Whitney Aerospace, in the Treasury Department as a production specialist. Life changes brought him to the South, and he began to work in education as a substitute teaching in Hillsborough, North Carolina. Shortly thereafter, he was hired as a full-time exceptional children's teacher's assistant. While at the same school, he served as an ISS coordinator, that'd be tough, math teacher, and assistant principal intern. Since that time, he's been assistant principal, Title I program specialist, middle school principal, and high school principal. Educationally, he holds a Bachelor of Science degree in manufacturing systems and a Master's of Industrial Technology from North Carolina A&T, and a Master's in School Administration from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Currently, he's a doctoral student at HPU and the principal at Wingate Andrews High School in High Point. Let us welcome our friends.
All right, so we're high school principals, so we probably don't need a microphone. So most of our day is spent yelling and hollering. So thank you so much for the welcome. Eric and I have been, we met a long time ago during our time at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We carpooled together. And so we have worked together throughout the years in Title I in different programs. And as a part of the work that we've done together and the time that we spent together going back and forth to Chapel Hill and to Sanford for classes, we really forged more of a brotherhood. And from that brotherhood has brought us so many other great memories and conversations that have come. And a lot of those conversations really honestly started to deal with some of the things that we're dealing with in our country and making sure that we address racial equity and make sure we address and having difficult conversations sometimes. And so one of the things that we often refer to ourselves as brothers from another mother. But then in addition to that, we also are able to kind of have some dialogue with one another about topics that may not necessarily be the most advantageous for us to have in large groups or settings. Because sometimes those large group settings leave us with a stigma, and it leaves us feeling like we can't have those difficult types of conversations. So I'm gonna break the ice, just to get us started this morning, and then we're gonna keep moving, right? So there are a lot of conversations that Eric and I have been able to have over the last couple of years. And there have been things that Eric has called and said, hey, is this true for Black people? The answer is yes, but don't you ever go and ask any other Black person that. I'm your safe Black man, don't you go and what we learned was.
Likewise,
right? So I'm gonna tell you the litmus test for Upwell when things really got great for us. We're riding along in the car, and I don't know what it was he was reading. But Eric was reading this thing, and he said, we got some crazy white people, don't you? I was like, yeah, we got some crazy Black ones too. And so from that conversation, we laughed, but it really allowed us to break the ice and go into some more in-depth conversations. It really did. And the environment was, I know that Eric loves me. I know that he trusts my opinion. And I know that he's not going to do anything intentionally that is going to be disrespectful or rude. So therefore, I was able to share a whole lot of stuff with him that I probably would never share with any of y'all because y'all might judge me. But he didn't know any better, right? And so that really helped to kind of forge a bond that I think is helpful with us being able to mitigate these waters of racial equity and injustice.
So you went way off script.
I did.
You already took my
Sorry,
point,
I was on time this morning. I was early.
It's about time you're on time. Did you know what they say about that, Mark?
Well, you can't say that.
No, so one of the experiences we had, so we're going down, so we were both in Guilford County at the time, and we're driving down again. Marcus mentioned we would go every Wednesday afternoon and every Saturday morning. And we would have class from, I think it was 4 to 9 o'clock every Wednesday. And so we're driving down the road, and if any of you know us well, or the court system usually knows us well with speeding tickets. So we're very both very well at pushing that gas pedal. So go figure. I don't know how many times we got pulled over going to Sanford or Lee County, but it was a lot. But we got pulled over this one time, and so it's on the way back. It's 8, 9 o'clock at night. I forget what time it was exactly. But you have a white man and a black man, and much younger than we were today, driving down the road. So we got pulled over, and again, we've been having these racial conversations with each other for at that point about 2 years. And so we're driving down the road, we get pulled over, and so we're like, oh, and it was him driving. He was driving this time. So he gets pulled over, and I'm like, oh gosh, are we going to get a ticket this time? Or are we going to be able to figure out how to talk our way out of this one? Because that happened as well. And started having a conversation with the police officer. We won't say what county it was or whatever, but he came up to the window. The first question he asked was, what are you two doing together right now? And we sort of looked at each other. We're like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
The reason why it's going to be interesting because he has a lot of mouth. That's the reason why.
Yep. So I'm like looking at him, I'm like, I can't even answer this right now. Shut your mouth, bite your tongue, Negley. So we start talking about that, and it was a very, very unpleasant conversation. And basically, the perception that we had, whether it be real from his aspect, wearing that badge that day, was, I'm going to figure out why this young white male and this young black male are in the middle of this county late at night, and they can't really tell me exactly why, because we're in class. And he was like, what class? There's no classes going on out here. And so we went through this whole story. So long story short of that night, we had a great dialogue, and I witnessed what it was like to be pulled over and be questioned. And then we had a great dialogue about the perception that a young white male and a black male had together in this type of county and how that could be perceived. So that was one of the really eye-opening moments for me. Obviously, as a white man, let's just face it, some of those experiences I don't have to have. He has to raise his kids in a much different way than I do. He has to talk to them. We've had ongoing conversations about this. When his young man or his daughter or his son gets pulled over, what he has to teach them. And so we've had a conversation about that. Obviously, I've talked with my own kids about what that may be like and how it may be different for them as a white male. I have 4 boys. So we have a lot of ongoing dialogue about that. So we just, we're going to talk a lot today about just finding that safe space, someone to talk to, and how that will help us all propel ourselves moving forward, not only as individuals, but also as a country.
So during our time at Chapel Hill, one of the pieces that I experienced is that we're both like these attention deficit individuals, where that is not, that's one of the pieces that we both struggle with, right? So I work better under pressure, and so does he. So a lot of times we would be on the way to class, and whoever wasn't driving was completing assignments, so that we can turn them in whenever we get there.
It would have been dangerous with Wi-Fi going down the road. We didn't have that then.
Oh yeah, that would have been it. So we were, and honestly, the unsafe part was that we were doing this off the top of our heads, trying to remember what we had read probably earlier in the week, and that was probably not a good idea. But anyway, we had a system. In some weeks, Eric would be responsible for reading, getting notes, and getting them together. And the other weeks, I would do the same, right? And so this particular week, I got notes because I was driving. Eric was working on assignments. I had done my assignment. Eric was working on his from the notes that I provided. And so we both went to class, submitted this assignment. We go back the next week, we get this assignment. You know who gets this 8+ or H+, whatever it was? This guy. You know who did all the work? This one. This one right here. And so we're sitting, and I still remember sitting in the room, and I'm looking at his paper, and I'm looking at mine. I was like, how did I get an A and you got an A+? Like, I got the same things, and furthermore, I did the work, but I couldn't tell him that I had done the work. But in that process, I said, this is really not right? So I went in class and asked him during a break, like, hey, what's going on? Well, I get to decide what your grade is about your assignments. So at that point, I didn't like his response, and I knew I wasn't going to let it go. However, I was trying to think through, like, what's my next step going to be? Mouth of the South over here, on the way home. You can't let that go. Like, you got to say something. Don't let it go. It's like, well, Eric, black people fight all the time. I don't feel like fighting about this. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm gonna get through this class. No, you're not. You're gonna go through it. We're gonna, you gotta say something. And I did. And the piece that came out of this was found myself in a system that wasn't necessary, or I didn't necessarily have the support. So I went to a chairperson and said, hey, this is what happened on this particular paper, and these are the two papers. And the chairperson said, well, Marcus, you can do two things. You can fight it and go on to the dean and have this conversation because you're right, but you got to take this professor another time. So is it really worth you going through the fight? Can you imagine working on an assignment, doing the work for the assignment, going to someone who was supposed to support you with getting what was due to you, and the individual that was there to help you, because they didn't know, gave you advice that said, no, you probably shouldn't go any further just because, probably it's going to be difficult for you in the next class as well, as opposed to addressing the individual that he thought was going to make it difficult for me in the next class. That conversation, we had a whole lot of conversation and dialogue just about that system that existed, because if I would have known someone within that particular system, my outcomes might have been a little different. My options would have been a little different. I had to work my butt off in the next class, but I knew that I couldn't just let that stand just because everybody else, there are going to be students that come behind me. And there had to be something that I set the precedence that said, no, you can't do that.
So I think the other piece I want to add to this is, we've just had, Marcus mentioned a little bit about the cultural understanding. So we have a lot of dialogue. I will call him and say, tell me a little bit about this. So in the beginning, it was because I grew up in a largely white community and had worked in lots of white communities. I was, in the northwest section of Guilford County, so I didn't have a lot of interactions with that. So a lot of, you guys know Paige well, very diverse community. And this guy, I owe a lot of credit to him of just having a lot of knowledge going into this situation. Because again, I haven't had to endure some of the things that some of the community that I represent endures on a daily basis. So we talk anything about different styles of church, different hairstyles, like tell me a little bit about scarves with African-American women, tell me a little bit about, whatever it is. So and likewise, the ongoing joke between us is tell me about your people.
Right.
And that's how we started. So just, it was so powerful. And I think some of those things that I've learned from him, again, that I've been able to use and grow in my own way. And then obviously allows me to be able to interact with my community that I serve so much better each and every day. I mean, you guys have probably known, Paige has had a rough few years. When I got there, I was the fourth principal in 3 years, so I had a lot of work to do. We also, in my first year, we lost 4 students, all in my very first year as principal there. We lost a student to a car wreck, cancer, a shooting, and then a drowning, all in 1 year. So when you talk about losing students, it was a very rough time. And one of the largest reasons that I went to Paige was to work in a diverse community and support students that may need more support. And so in that year, all 4 of those students happened to be minority students, all African Americans. So, I've done some really, really sad things, but again, having these conversations with them allowed me to really be a part of those families' lives during that time. Unfortunately, but being respected in the community, I had to be there when one of the students was taken off life support. And then I also was there when our student was taken out of the water from the drowning across and led that casket down with his picture. So again, I don't think I would have been a part of those families' lives unless I had all this knowledge and these ongoing conversations, being able to sit around the dinner tables with these families and sit in very, very sad times, as we all know, losing a child. So that's a lot of what I'm here to talk about today, is just learning and understanding the different cultures and the different things and the different reasons that our different demographic groups do things and how they do things, and having those understandings to be able to move us forward.
So that was the heavy part, and I'm sure that weighs heavy on everyone's heart. And the topics that we're talking about are not easy topics to have. However, you have to be able to figure out some silver lining in some of them. So even in that situation, I too have had to experience some of those deaths and things in my school community. But I do recall having conversation, which he kind of alluded to earlier, which will kind of bring a little bit of laughter and smile upon your face. And this is not something that you go and say to your Black friends, because I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. And so it was one of those things where he was talking about going to, we were talking about church and going to these services, and he's telling me what time it starts. Don't plan anything for the afternoon, because you're gonna be there for a couple hours. We're gonna make sure that he gets laid to rest very well. So this is not gonna be, and so and vice versa, we've had conversations where I've gone to white student funerals or white family funerals, like, be on time, because we're not gonna be in there all day. We're gonna get in there, we're gonna be done, right? So,
59 minutes, right?
59 minutes was his role. And we during our time one day, he would say, I went to church, and we were out in 57 minutes. And I said, at 57-minute mark, we were just getting warmed up. And so those are dialogues and conversations that we might have had jokingly or say jokingly. But the important part was creating the culture and the environment for us to be able to have those conversations, so that whenever he goes there, he knows to take a bag of chips and a snack, because he's going to be there for a while. And so those are things and conversations that are really cultural, that he would have known in the event that someone didn't share, and vice versa. That's not the environment that I was raised in. So those were very different experiences. Eric talks a little bit about just the differences of conversations that we have to have with children at times. And I don't know how many of you saw this article, but my son and I did an article for the Greensboro News and Record, just talking about the conversation of the talk. And the talk is that I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. But I have to have conversations with my children about, when you're walking in the neighborhood, make sure that you're cognizant of your surroundings. And for the most part, 90% of my neighbors would give a heart for my children. Like, they absolutely love and adore them. But there's a small percentage of them that I know don't necessarily like what they see in me. Like, I'm in the cul-de-sac at the end, in the biggest house in the cul-de-sac, and this little brown boy is sitting in the middle of this cul-de-sac. It can be intimidating for some that don't know anything about me. And in the event that they only see and hear what they see and hear on the news and newspapers, then it changes their perception. And that's reality. However, the conversations that I have with my children about, when you start driving, because I have a 15-year-old, she'll be 15 in September, so of course she wants to go practice driving every night. So pray my strength for my heart, because I don't. She got it driving from her mother. But it is hard having those conversations, because it strips their innocence. They're kids, and they respond to the same thing that everybody else's children responds to. They respond to love, they respond to affection, they respond to attention. However, I have to talk to them about individuals that don't see that in me.
I think the last story that I'll share is just, so I mentioned the student deaths that we've had at Page. So one of them, and we had a lot of dialogue about this when I was having to deal with this situation, just sort of leaning on him for his perspective. And one of them, his name was Sincere Davis, and I'll probably get choked up talking about it, but he was a young man, a star running back on our football team, incredibly gifted on the football field. And that's what everybody saw. Then the media saw that that he had dreadlocks. And where do a lot of people's mind go with young African-American boys that have dreadlocks and then were involved in a shooting? Where do they go? Answer that. Drugs or what? Gangs. What people didn't know was this kid was a superb talent in the classroom as well. He was an AP and IB student. So I found myself, and he really gave me a lot of coaching points during this time, because I'm dealing with media, and of course that's all they want to talk about. So I had to fight really hard to sort of change the perception or change the narrative of how he was being portrayed, and had to have a lot of conversations with his family because they didn't feel as if they could get on TV and sort of advocate for their son. So that was really an interesting time. And again, I had to count on him of, how do I change this narrative? Why is this coming all about? So that was very important for me. I think the other piece that I know we worked on, and I won't say when this was, but it was in about the last 5 years, I picked up the phone one morning, and he'll probably never forget it. I'm an early riser. He's a late nighter. We were just talking about that on the way in. He was up till 2 a.m. I was in the bed about 9:30 at night because I wake up very early in the morning, usually about 3:30. So I called him one morning. I think it was even a little bit before 5 a.m. And I was in one of my, mouth of the South, as he calls it. That's a new label for me, by the way. But I was in one of my moments because I was talking about, there was a former situation or former employee, and they had some recent charges brought about against them. And I was comparing the bail that this individual got versus someone that he may have known very well for the same sort of situation. And we found ourselves, you remember that conversation well, same charges, same everything. And of course, I don't know the behind the scenes from the police and of the judge, with all due respect to the judges, but the perception that was there was that we had about $300,000 to $400,000 difference in bond alone. And again, I'm not pretending that I know all the behind the scenes information that judge may know, but the perception that created that day, at least for me as a white male, was, oh my gosh, this is so real of what some of our minority families are talking about. And because it's right here, I knew one individual, he knew the other individual, and we sit there and compare that case, black and white case, from the media perception, and it was completely different outcome for those two families. Now, I'm not saying wrongfully convicted, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just talking about the straight bail that was given to both of those individuals was completely different.
The piece where we enjoy having, and not necessarily enjoy, but we really do like having these types of conversations, because oftentimes you hear conversations about race and equity and they end in shouting matches and nobody is listening, because everybody is so quickly offended by people's perceptions and by people's ideologies. And the only way we change those is by having the dialogue, by having the conversation, being open-minded to the conversations. And people's perception, it really is their reality. And so because it's not true in your world doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And because it's not true in my world doesn't mean it's not true in your world. And so we have to understand that people are coming from totally different backgrounds and have had different life experiences. And the same thing that both of our kids respond to is the same thing that everybody else respond to as well. Just being able to have dialogue, respecting conversation, being able to sit down and have dialogue with individuals that you know are going to be upfront and honest. And I would love to sit here and tell you that the conversations are comfortable, but they're not. They're really uncomfortable, but they're necessary because we can't stay where we have been. And so for us to continue to turn blinded eye on certain things, it's really not going to improve things at all. If individuals knew that, and the good part about it is that we both raise our children to look for who you are as an individual. I don't care if you're white, black, purple, or green. I'm going to judge you based on the way that you interact and treat me. I'm not going to have any preconceived notions. You know why? Because I've had white people that have laid out the red carpet for me, but I've also had white people to treat me very differently and wrong. The same is true for individuals in my same race. I've had black people that laid out the red carpet for me, but I've also had black people that have done things and crossed me that I didn't think was the right thing to do. And so I think that having the dialogue and having the conversation, being truthful and being open about where your stances are, helps us to break down barriers. You got anything else you want to close with?
I think you closed it out good, brother.
All right, fantastic. Thank you all so much for just the opportunity.
We got a question or two.
Okay.
I'm sure there are plenty, but we only have a minute.
We did well with time there.
I have a question, only because, I work for a corporation and we're all about equity and inclusion right now. Would you do speaking engagements made like this for a local company here in the community to share the message?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think like in addition to like working in schools, we just feel like, and I speak for him, you don't have to worry about him. He'll be up anyway. We'll just wake him up. The goal is that although we do a lot within the schools and within the school system, like we all both are very passionate about, this is also a calling that we can do in the broader sense of community. Because if we can get one or two of you all to have this same type of conversation with individuals in your circle, then we begin to tear down those barriers that kind of continue to block us in.
And we've really had this, I would say, dream for about 5 years. We've been talking about a long time of doing speaking things, but obviously with the recent past, year and a half, with all the different movements that have been out there, we've been talking a little bit more. So we're starting to etch that out. I think we have a couple of things planned here in the next couple of months. So we'd love to do that for sure.
One of them is a great segment we've been processing. Is called "You Can't Say That, But I Can."
You guys did a great job. It is uncomfortable, but it is absolutely necessary. I had a similar experience. My best friend's black, and I grew up, I'm godfather to his 3 kids. So in Louisiana, New Orleans, culture is more integrated, and that's where we need to get. So people need to understand different is not bad. So thank you for doing this. Thank everybody for coming out. We have another meeting next week, so y'all come back next week. And we'll end it at that.